In the vast expanse of space, a shadow loomed over humanity as the Coalition's biological weapon was unleashed. Designed to target the very essence of human physiology, the Doomsday Virus was a nightmare crafted with precision, leaving the ecosystems of any conquered worlds untouched. Admiral Elijah Novak stood on the bridge of the starship Aegis, his expression grim as he watched the live feed from Luna 1, Earth's primary lunar colony. "Admiral, it's starting." A panicked voice echoed through the comm system, pulling his attention away from the screens. The chaos displayed on the monitor was chilling. The first wave of the biological agent had been covertly released just hours earlier, and now panic erupted across the lunar colony. Figures collapsed in the streets, their cries of agony filling the airwaves. "They won't even know what hit them," sneered Commander Zolfo, the alien strategist behind the assault, a glint of cruel satisfaction in his eyes. Initial projections had calculated a mortality rate exceeding 90%. The remaining population would be weak, vulnerable, ripe for swift subjugation. However, as the minutes ticked by, something remarkable began to unfold. The chaos on Luna 1 started to subside. Medical personnel clad in hastily donned protective suits moved among the stricken figures. Instead of succumbing to despair, some of those thought dead twitched, sat upright, and shakily clambered to their feet. "Admiral, the contagion's impact, it's minimal," blurted the comms officer, disbelief lacing his tone. They seem to be stabilizing." "Impossible," Zolfo roared, his confidence crumbling. The calculations of his biological warfare team couldn't have been that flawed. Novak, feeling a flicker of hope, switched the feed to another human settlement and then another. The results were the same: confusion and disorientation giving way to slow, staggering recovery. Inside the Coalition's war room, chaos reigned. Leaders once united by a common goal began to point fingers, accusations record-sheeting across the chamber. Zolfo, once confident and imposing, now cowered under the weight of furious glares from his peers. He stammered out half-baked theories of unexpected mutation rates and delayed reactions, but his voice held little conviction. Within the human territories, the initial shock was rapidly replaced by a grim determination. Luna 1 became a beacon of hope as reports of miraculous recoveries spread through the network. Dr. Elaura Quinn, one of humanity's leading experts in xenobiology, emerged as an unlikely savior. "They miscalculated," she declared, broadcasting from the heart of Luna 1's medical facility. "The adaptive capability of the human genome is greater than even we realized. This isn't simply resistance, it's evolution." Her words resonated throughout human space, igniting a fire of resilience. The Coalition, now painfully aware of their catastrophic blunders, scrambled to secure their biological research facilities. Teams of engineers were dispatched to modify or destroy any work that could be exploited by the humans. But humanity had momentum. Their counterattacks were not vast planetary invasions, but targeted strikes with pinpoint accuracy. They identified research stations orbiting moons, hidden outposts disguised as civilian settlements, and labs nestled deep within the hearts of planets believed untouchable. Each strike was a message. "We know what you did. We know where you are. We're coming for you." Once seen as a relentless tide, humans now operated with the precision and speed of a surgical scalpel, transforming desperation into a calculated response. With each liberated lab, they uncovered a new piece of the biological puzzle, horrifying insights into the weaponized pathogen and their own surprising defenses. Dr. Quinn and her team worked tirelessly, deciphering alien data formats and unraveling the grotesque logic behind the Coalition's biological experiments. They learned that species-specific diseases had been meticulously cultivated, twisted, and mutated to ensure maximum devastation. But it wasn't just humans. Countless other emerging spacefaring races had been quietly studied, their vulnerabilities mapped like stars waiting to be consumed. The Coalition, once united in fear, now began to fracture. Smaller, less influential members secretly approached the humans, offering information and apologies disguised as desperate pleas for future leniency in the face of humanity's focused fury. The once mighty alliance began to crumble from within. On the fringes of Coalition space, Captain Malik Hawk piloted the Sphinx, a modified human corvette equipped with experimental shielding technology gleaned from recently captured outposts. Officially, his mission was reconnaissance, tracking Coalition fleet movements and identifying potential targets. In reality, Hawk had become a hunter. With a specialized crew, they intercepted coded messages meant only for high command, deciphering whispers about secret research convoys and hidden fallback stations. Each successful strike left flaming wrecks and panic calls for reinforcements echoing in their wake. The Sphinx became a legend, a symbol of retribution, a reminder that the hunters had become the hunted. As Admiral Novak watched the reports flood in, he was burdened by the weight of countless failures. He knew humanity understood the gravity of the situation. If they could fully harness the adaptive potential that the Coalition's attack had unlocked, the Coalition wouldn't just be defeated, they faced the possibility of extinction. In a desperate gamble, Novak initiated contact with humanity's leadership, offering a ceasefire. The response was swift and chillingly straightforward. Dismantle your entire biowarfare division unconditionally or face the consequences. As the Coalition leaders squabbled over their next move, Dr. Quinn achieved a major breakthrough. They had isolated the exact genetic sequence responsible for the rapid adaptation triggered by the Coalition's virus. This wasn't a cure but a blueprint, a potential way to manipulate and enhance their own biology in a controlled manner. The possibilities were breathtaking and terrifying. Captain Hawk, mapping routes through a particularly volatile nebula, received the news of the ceasefire. Anger flared within him, hotter than the plasma clouds they navigated. His crew, hand-picked from those who had lost the most during the initial bioweapon attack, shared his sentiment. Orders, Captain, his first officer, Lieutenant Ava Reyes, asked, her voice laced with barely contained rage. Hawk stared at the star charts, the Coalition's suddenly vulnerable outposts marked like open wounds. They want peace, he muttered. They think a piece of paper changes anything. Crumbling the transmission in his fist, he declared, "The Sphinx will continue as planned." News of Hawk's defiance reached high command, igniting a firestorm of debate. Admirals argued over the risks of alienating those Coalition members, genuinely seeking reconciliation. Dr. Quinn, carrying the weight of both scientific achievement and moral authority, urged caution. "We've achieved a significant victory," she pleaded. "The threat to our immediate survival is diminished. Let us focus on understanding this evolutionary leap and using it to protect ourselves, not to become the very thing we swore to fight against." Yet, across human territories, Hawk found support. Families who refused to believe in the good intentions of their attackers rallied around him. Veterans haunted by fallen comrades demanded not just peace but retribution. The debate mirrored the struggle within the human spirit itself, whether to forgive or to relentlessly seize the advantage they now held. Admiral Novak observed as the first bioweapon research facilities were dismantled. Coalition engineers worked alongside reluctant human observers, ensuring decades of terrifying experimentation were reduced to rubble and sanitized code. With each destroyed lab, a flicker of hope rekindled in Novak's heart. Perhaps they had averted the worst-case scenario. Perhaps this fragile piece could take root and grow into something genuine. However, the news from the Sphinx was a persistent thorn in his side. The rogue warship now operated independently, ignoring orders to stand down and harassing Coalition supply lines with guerrilla tactics. It was a constant reminder of the tenuous nature of this newfound peace and how easily it could shatter. As the story of humanity's resilience began to unfold, the stage was set for an epic confrontation that would determine the fate of both species. The news of humanity's unexpected resilience spread like wildfire. Across Luna 1 and the other colonies, morale surged as survivors began to share their stories of recovery. The once chaotic streets of Luna 1 transformed into scenes of solidarity, with communities coming together to help those affected by the virus. Dr. Elara Quinn, energized by the unfolding events, gathered her team of scientists and medical experts in the newly established Crisis Center, a makeshift hub for response efforts. "Everyone, listen up," Elara called out, her voice echoing in the crowded room. "What we've witnessed isn't just survival, it's a remarkable adaptation of our biology. We need to understand this response and use it to our advantage. If we can figure out how to amplify this adaptive process, we could turn the tables on the coalition." Excitement rippled through the room, but alongside it was an undercurrent of fear. The team knew that they were racing against time. Commander Zolfa would not let this setback deter him for long. As the coalition leaders debated their next steps, Zolfa devised a plan to reassert control over the situation. Meanwhile, Captain Malik Hawk and his crew aboard the Sphinx continued their operations in the depths of coalition space. Their latest mission had been a daring raid on a secret research facility, and the spoils were impressive. Data that detailed the coalition's bioweapons programs and a trove of biological research that could illuminate their understanding of the virus. "Captain, we've secured the files," reported Lieutenant Reyes, her face illuminated by the glow of the ship's control panel. "This data could help us develop a countermeasure." "Good work, Reyes. Let's get this information back to Elara as quickly as we can. Every moment counts," Hulk replied, determination shining in his eyes. His crew, a tight-knit group forged through shared struggles, understood the stakes. They had lost friends and family to the initial virus release, and each successful mission felt like a step toward justice. As the Sphinx plotted a course back to Luna 1, the atmosphere on board was electric with anticipation. The crew discussed the implications of their findings, sharing theories and ideas about the best way to use the data. Hawk listened intently, knowing that the key to survival lay in their ability to adapt as quickly as their enemies. Back on Luna 1, Elara and her team delved into the coalition's research. They discovered that the aliens had underestimated the complexities of the human genome, believing it to be static and easily manipulated. Elara knew that this was a flaw they could exploit. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a holographic display of genetic sequences. "The virus has triggered multiple pathways in our DNA that promote rapid healing and adaptation. We can enhance this. If we can isolate these pathways, we might create a vaccine that not only protects against the current virus, but also strengthens our immune response for the future." The team worked tirelessly, conducting experiments late into the night. Each breakthrough was met with cheers, but Elara remained grounded. They had to act swiftly before the coalition could regroup and strike again. As they pushed forward, news from the coalition became increasingly ominous. Zolfo, refusing to accept defeat, rallied his remaining forces. He proclaimed that humanity's resilience was a mere fluke, and that the coalition would crush them once and for all. His words resonated with those still loyal to the coalition, and they began preparing for an all-out assault. "Commander Zolfa is gathering forces for a counterattack," a coalition informant reported to Admiral Novak. "He's convinced he can break the human spirit once and for all." "Let him try," Novak replied, steely determination in his voice. "We've weathered the worst of the storm, and now we're ready to fight back. We cannot let fear dictate our actions." The human fleet, bolstered by reinforcements from defecting coalition members, began to assemble for a potential confrontation. As ships from various colonies arrived at Luna 1, a sense of unity began to replace the fear that had once gripped them. They were no longer just survivors, they were a coalition of their own, ready to stand against the forces that threatened their existence. Meanwhile, Dr. Quinn made a pivotal discovery in the lab. A particular genetic sequence, initially dormant in the human genome, had been activated by the virus, acting as a failsafe. This failsafe seemed to regulate the aggressive adaptations, ensuring that while humans could adapt, they wouldn't mutate uncontrollably like some invasive species. "Elara, this is groundbreaking," one of her colleagues exclaimed. eyes wide with excitement. If we can harness this failsafe, we could create a controlled evolutionary enhancement program. Ilara nodded, her mind racing with possibilities. Exactly. If we can safely push the limits of our adaptations, we could become more than just survivors. We could become a new version of humanity, stronger, more resilient. As plans for the counterattack took shape, Captain Hawk's crew prepared for the upcoming battle. "We've faced challenges before, and we've come through stronger each time," he reminded his team. "This is no different. We fight not just for survival, but for our future." The crew echoed their agreement, their spirits bolstered by the sense of purpose. They would defend not just their lives, but their way of life, ensuring that humanity would not only endure but thrive. As the final preparations were made, the tension hung thick in the air. The coalition forces, driven by a desperate need to reclaim their lost power, prepared for an offensive that would decide the fate of both species. The stage was set for a confrontation that would echo throughout the galaxy, where human ingenuity and determination would be tested against a formidable foe. In the dark silence of space, the two sides readied themselves, unaware that this battle would not only define the fate of the conflict, but also reshape the future of humanity forever. As the tension mounted in the lead-up to the confrontation, both the human fleet and the coalition forces gathered their strength. Captain Malik Hawk stood on the bridge of the Sphinx, scanning the tactical displays as he reviewed the fleet's formation. Ships from across human territories filled the void of space, each vessel a testament to human resilience and determination. "Status report," he commanded, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. "Captain, we've secured all available fighters, and our defensive perimeter is holding," Lieutenant Reyes replied, her fingers flying over the controls. "Ilara's team is finalizing the countermeasure based on the genetic data we retrieved. We'll have it ready for deployment by the time we engage." "Good. We need every advantage we can muster," Hawk said, his gaze focused on the vastness outside. "Once the coalition strikes, we'll hit them hard and fast." Meanwhile, Dr. Ilara Quinn and her team worked feverishly in the research lab on Luna 1. The data they had gathered from the coalition's biological research was a goldmine, revealing not only the mechanisms of the Doomsday Virus, but also potential vulnerabilities in the coalition's biological strategies. "Ilara, we've isolated the genetic markers responsible for rapid adaptation," one of her scientists, Dr. Mason Chen, announced. "If we integrate this with a failsafe sequence, we could potentially create a vaccine that boosts our immune response without compromising stability." "That's exactly what we need," Ilara exclaimed, her excitement bubbling over. "Let's get to work. We don't have much time before the coalition makes its move." As the scientists delved deeper into their work, the first skirmishes began. Human scouts reported sightings of coalition vessels, their formations tightening as they prepared for the imminent assault. Admiral Novak gathered the fleet's commanders in the war room, a sense of urgency palpable in the air. "We must act decisively," Novak stated, his voice resonating with authority. "The coalition believes we are weak. They think they can break us. It's time to show them the strength of our unity." The commanders nodded in agreement, determination etched on their faces. Plans were laid out, strategies honed. They would not only defend their territories, but would also strike back, showing the coalition that humanity was no longer an easy target. Back on the Sphinx, Hawk rallied his crew. "We've trained for this moment. Remember what we're fighting for. Our families, our homes, our future. Stay sharp and focused." As the human fleet launched toward the designated battle zone, the stars streaked by, a reminder of the stakes at play. Hawk felt a mix of pride and anxiety swell within him. This was not just a battle, it was a chance to reclaim their destiny. Suddenly, alarms blared across the bridge. "Captain, coalition ships detected on an intercept course," Reyes shouted, her voice cutting through the tension. "Battle stations," Hawk ordered, adrenaline surging through him. The crew moved with practiced precision, readying weapons and activating shields. As the coalition ships emerged from the void, the situation escalated quickly. Commander Zolfa's fleet had arrived in full force, a menacing display of firepower. The human ships formed a defensive line, ready to confront the impending onslaught. "Prepare for engagement," Hawk commanded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle upon him. "Target their lead ship. Let's send them a message." The first volley of fire erupted as both fleets clashed in a spectacular display of light and sound. The void erupted in chaos as laser blasts streaked through the darkness, illuminating the scene with brilliant flashes. Hawk's heart raced as he guided his ship through the fray, focusing on maintaining formation while delivering precise strikes against the enemy. "We're taking heavy fire," a crew member shouted, the ship shaking under the impact of enemy blasts. "Divert power to shields. Return fire," Hawk barked, determination stealing his resolve. Each moment felt like an eternity as the battle raged around them. But amidst the chaos, the human fleet held firm. Elara, back on Luna 1, watched the battle unfold on the screens in the lab, her heart pounding in her chest. "Come on, Captain. You can do this," she whispered, her hands clenched into fists. The countermeasure was nearly ready, but she knew they needed to buy time. As the conflict escalated, the human forces began to turn the tide. Reports of successful strikes against key coalition vessels filtered in, boosting morale throughout the fleet. The coalition, caught off guard by the ferocity of the human response, struggled to maintain cohesion. "Captain, we've got a breach on the port side," Reyes reported, urgency in her voice. "Reinforce that area. We can't let them break through," Hawk replied, glancing at the tactical display. Their defenses were holding, but he knew they couldn't sustain the assault indefinitely. Then came the turning point. As the battle raged on, Elara and her team completed their countermeasure. A vaccine designed to enhance human resilience against the Doomsday Virus was ready for deployment. Elara sent the instructions to the fleet, knowing it could change the course of the battle. "Captain, we've got the countermeasure ready," Reyes announced, her eyes bright with hope. "We can distribute it to our forces in real time." "To it. Let's give our people the edge they need," Hawk commanded, his heart racing at the prospect of turning the tide. As the countermeasure was deployed, a wave of energy rippled through the human fleet. Crew members felt an unfamiliar strength coursing through their veins, amplifying their resolve. The human ships began to respond with renewed vigor, pushing back against the coalition forces. Amidst the chaos, Commander Zolfa realized the tide was turning. "Fall back. Regroup," he barked, panic creeping into his voice as he witnessed his ships falter against the unyielding human defense. But it was too late. The humans, emboldened by the countermeasure, launched a counteroffensive that sent the coalition reeling. With each ship that fell, humanity's spirits soared higher. The realization that they could not only survive but fight back ignited a fire within them. Hawk maneuvered the Sphinx with precision, targeting Zolfa's flagship. "Let's end this," he shouted, locking onto the coalition leader's ship. As the final shot was fired, the coalition flagship erupted in a brilliant explosion, signaling a decisive victory for humanity. Cheers erupted throughout the human fleet as they witnessed the downfall of their oppressor. In the aftermath of the battle, the human forces regrouped, their spirits high. They had not only survived the coalition's assault, but had shown the galaxy that humanity could fight back against seemingly insurmountable odds. Back on Luna 1, Dr. Quinn and her team celebrated their achievement. They had not only survived the virus, but had harnessed it to enhance their own biology. As Elara looked out at the stars, she knew that humanity had crossed a threshold, a moment that would shape their future. But the conflict was far from over. Zolfa, nursing his wounds, would not give up easily. As the galaxy breathed a sigh of relief, an even greater challenge loomed on the horizon. The echoes of victory still rang in the minds of the human fleet, but Admiral Elijah Novak understood that the battle was only a beginning. The coalition's forces, though battered and demoralized, were not entirely defeated. Commander Zolfo, nursing his wounded pride, was plotting a counteroffensive that could bring the war back to humanity's doorstep. On Luna 1, the mood was a mix of celebration and apprehension. Dr. Elara Quinn and her team continued to analyze the data from the recent battle, desperate to stay one step ahead of the coalition. "Elara, look at this," Dr. Mason Chen called, his finger hovering over a holographic display filled with flashing data points. "Zolfo's ship sustained heavy damage, but we've identified a pattern in their communications. They're regrouping at a secret location, possibly planning a retaliatory strike." Elara's brow furrowed with concern. "We need to warn Admiral Novak. If they're consolidating their forces, it could be a massive assault. We can't let them catch us off guard." Mason nodded, his face serious. "I'll send the intel immediately. But we also need to prepare our defenses. If they strike, we need to be ready." As Mason relayed the information, Admiral Novak held an emergency meeting with his senior commanders aboard the Aegis. The tension in the room was palpable, every leader acutely aware of the stakes involved. "Commander Zolfo is regrouping," Novak stated, pacing in front of the assembled commanders. "We can't afford to be complacent. We need to fortify our defenses on Luna 1 and prepare for the worst. They may come at us with everything they have." "What if we launch a preemptive strike?" suggested one commander, his eyes gleaming with a mixture of eagerness and determination. "If we hit them before they're ready, we can take the fight to them." "Risky," replied another. "If we miscalculate, we could expose ourselves to a devastating counterattack." The debate raged, each commander presenting their views, weighing the consequences of action versus inaction. Elara, having joined the meeting to present her findings, finally spoke up. "If we can adapt our defenses using the countermeasure we developed, we could strengthen our position significantly. This isn't just about offense. We need a robust defense if Zolfo attacks." Novak paused, considering her words. "You're right, Elara. Strengthening our defenses will be our first priority, but we can't ignore the possibility of a preemptive strike." With the meeting concluded, plans were set in motion. The human fleet would fortify Luna 1 while preparing for an offensive strike against the coalition's regrouping forces. Every ship was readied, every soldier prepared for the battle that lay ahead. Meanwhile, Commander Zolfo was not idle. In the dark recesses of his flagship, the Imperius, he strategized with his remaining loyal commanders. They could not afford another setback, and this time they would come at humanity with full force. "Send out the signal to all available ships," Zolfo commanded, his voice cold and commanding. "We regroup at the hidden stronghold on planet Zephyr. Prepare for an all-out assault on Luna 1. We will crush them once and for all." His subordinates nodded, steeling themselves for the challenge ahead. The coalition had underestimated humanity before, but Zolfo was determined not to let it happen again. He had learned from his mistakes, and this time he would strike with ruthless precision. As the coalition fleet began to assemble, reports from human scouts indicated a gathering of ships near Zephyr. Novak received the intelligence and understood the urgency of the situation. "Prepare for immediate deployment," Novak ordered. "We need to intercept their forces before they reach Luna 1. Gather all available ships and let's move." The human fleet set out, every vessel brimming with anticipation and dread. As they traveled through the stars, the vast emptiness of space felt charged with potential, both thrilling and terrifying. The crew members aboard the Sphinx steeled themselves for what lay ahead. "Everyone ready?" Captain Hulk asked, scanning the faces of his crew. "This is it. We're not just fighting for survival, we're fighting for our future. Remember what we're up against and stay sharp." The crew nodded, their determination unwavering. They knew the risks involved, but they had something powerful driving them, the will to protect their loved ones and ensure a future free from oppression. As they approached the coordinates where the coalition had gathered, tension gripped the crew. Alarms sounded as Lieutenant Reyes monitored the scanners. "Captain, we've identified multiple coalition ships ahead. They're preparing to move." "Form up, engage at will," Hawk commanded, adrenaline pumping through his veins as they entered the fray. The two fleets clashed in a dazzling spectacle of light and sound. Laser fire erupted, and the vacuum of space was filled with the haunting cries of battle. Ships danced around one another, weaving through enemy fire as human ingenuity met coalition firepower. Hawk's focus was razor-sharp. He maneuvered the Sphinx through the chaos, targeting coalition vessels with precision. "Keep an eye on our flanks. We can't afford to be flanked." As the battle raged, Ilara's research began to pay off. The countermeasure they had developed not only fortified human defenses, but also provided critical information on coalition weaknesses. Each strike against the coalition felt like a small victory, yet the coalition fought back fiercely, unwilling to surrender ground. "Captain, we're taking heavy fire," one of the crew shouted, the ship shuddering under the strain. "Divert power to the shields. We can't let them break through," Hawk shouted, feeling the weight of command on his shoulders. Every decision mattered. Suddenly, a massive coalition cruiser loomed ahead, its cannons primed and ready. "That's Zolfa's flagship," Reyes exclaimed. "We need to take it out." "On it," Hawk replied, focusing all firepower on the cruiser. "Let's show them what humanity is made of." With a series of precise maneuvers, the Sphinx launched a coordinated attack alongside other human vessels. Explosions lit up the void as laser beams found their marks. The crew rolled with each victory, their resolve bolstered by the success. But Zolfa was ready. As the human forces pressed their advantage, the coalition retaliated, launching a devastating counterattack. Explosions rocked the human fleet, and Hawk felt a pang of despair as ships began to fall around them. "Steady, don't lose focus," he shouted, rallying his crew. "We've come too far to back down now." Ilara's voice crackled over the comms. "Captain, we're ready to deploy the enhanced countermeasure to all ships. It will strengthen their shields against the coalition's firepower." "Do it. We need every advantage," Hawk commanded, his heart racing as they faced the growing threat. The enhanced countermeasure surged through the fleet, providing an additional layer of protection. As the coalition forces unleashed their fury, the human ships held firm, absorbing the hits while countering with renewed intensity. Finally, a turning point arrived. Zolfa's flagship, now heavily damaged, began to falter. With one last, desperate push, Hawk and his crew directed their fire at the cruiser, delivering a devastating blow. The flagship erupted into flames, a testament to the human spirit. Cheers erupted across the fleet, a chorus of victory ringing through the void. But the battle was not yet won. The coalition was still formidable, their resolve unbroken. Zolfa, now in retreat, would not rest until he had exacted his revenge. As the dust settled and the remnants of the battle began to drift into silence, a new reality dawned for both sides. Humanity had fought valiantly, but the war was far from over. The coalition would regroup and they would be back. In the aftermath, the human fleet rallied together, united by their shared experiences and losses. They had weathered a storm, but a greater challenge lay ahead. They would need to prepare, adapt, and evolve once more to confront the enemy that sought to annihilate them. As the stars twinkled overhead, Ilara gazed at the horizon, her mind racing with possibilities. "We may have won this battle, but we must ensure we're ready for the next one," she mused. "There's still so much we need to understand about our new abilities." Captain Hawk, overhearing her thoughts, nodded in agreement. "And we will. We'll stand together and face whatever comes next. For our future." With determination and resolve, humanity would rise once more, prepared to confront the challenges that lay ahead, united in their pursuit of survival and freedom. The remnants of the battle hung in the cold vacuum of space, and the human fleet, though victorious, bore the scars of conflict. Captain Malik Hawks stood on the bridge of the Sphinx, surveying the damaged vessels that had survived the coalition's assault. The victory was bittersweet, for it had come at a high cost. "Damage report," he commanded, his voice steady, masking the concern that gnawed at him. "Moderate damage to the hull and systems," reported Lieutenant Reyes, her eyes scanning the readouts. "Casualties are higher than we'd like. Medical teams are working overtime to treat the injured." Hawk nodded, the weight of responsibility heavy on his shoulders. "We've lost too many good people. We need to honor their sacrifice by ensuring this doesn't happen again." Meanwhile, on Luna 1, Dr. Elara Quinn and her team were busy analyzing the battle data. They had managed to repurpose the biological information from the coalition, but they needed to understand their own genetic enhancements better. Humanity had adapted, but they still had a long way to go. "Look at this," Elara said, pointing to the screens filled with data. "The adaptive response we saw during the battle can be enhanced. If we can map out the sequences involved, we could potentially build a stronger defense for future encounters." Mason, always her closest ally, chimed in. "And if we can anticipate coalition strategies, we can counter them before they even launch an attack." As they worked tirelessly, the atmosphere on Luna 1 was a mix of determination and grief. The losses from the recent battle weighed heavily on everyone's heart, but the human spirit refused to be broken. They had faced the abyss and emerged, but the war was far from over. On the Sphinx, Captain Hawk gathered his senior officers for a debriefing. The mood was somber, yet there was an undeniable sense of resolve among them. "We fought hard today," Hawk began, his voice firm. "But we need to prepare for the next wave. Zolfo will not give up. He will come back stronger, and we need to be ready." Admiral Novak's sending reinforcements and supplies, Lieutenant Reyes informed the group. "We'll have more ships and personnel to strengthen our defenses." "Good," Hawk replied. "We can't afford to underestimate them again. Every day we have is a gift. Let's use it to prepare." As they plotted their next course of action, Zolfo was not idle. In the hidden depths of coalition space, he convened with his remaining commanders, his eyes burning with fury. The loss of the flagship was a blow to his reputation, but he would not let it define him. "We have sustained a setback," Zolfo announced, his voice cold and authoritative. "But we are not defeated. Humanity thinks they have gained an advantage, but they do not yet understand the full extent of our capabilities." One of his commanders interjected, "What are your orders, Commander?" "We will launch a multi-pronged attack. Our intelligence suggests that Luna 1 is their key stronghold. If we can eliminate it, we will break their spirit," Zolfo declared, a cruel smile creeping across his face. "We will strike when they least expect it." Back on Luna 1, Elara's team made significant progress in their research. They discovered new pathways in the human genome that allowed for even greater adaptability. With this information, they began formulating a plan for enhancing their defenses further. "We need to deploy this new understanding to our fleet," Elara instructed her team. "If we can modify our ships and personnel using these genetic insights, we'll have an edge against the coalition." As the days passed, the atmosphere of anticipation filled the air. The human fleet was refitting and upgrading, preparing for the inevitable coalition counterattack. Morale was high despite the recent losses. They had tasted victory and were determined to hold onto it. However, just as hope began to flourish, disaster struck. Early warning systems blared throughout Luna 1, signaling an incoming coalition fleet. The alarm sent a jolt of fear through everyone. Hawk rushed to the command center, where Admiral Novak was already organizing the defense. "They're here sooner than we expected," Novak barked, scanning the incoming data. "We need to scramble our ships and prepare for battle immediately." Hawk nodded, adrenaline surging as he turned to his crew. "Everyone to your stations. We don't have much time." As the fleet readied itself for another battle, Elara and her team worked frantically to implement the new genetic enhancements. They had developed a treatment that could enhance the crew's performance, but they needed time to deploy it effectively. "Captain, We have a window to administer the treatment to key personnel before the battle begins, Ilara said urgently, her eyes filled with determination. It could give us the edge we need. Do it, Hulk commanded, knowing the stakes. Every second counts. As the crew members received the enhancements, they felt an energy surge through them, a sense of heightened awareness and strength. The medical teams worked quickly, administering treatments to as many personnel as possible before the Coalition fleet arrived in full force. Then came the moment they had all feared. The Coalition fleet emerged from the darkness, a menacing array of warships glinting against the backdrop of stars. Zolfo, leading the charge, was determined to avenge his previous defeat. Engage, Hulk shouted as the fleets clashed once more. The void erupted with the sounds of battle, bright flashes illuminating the darkness as laser fire exchanged between the two sides. Admiral Novak's voice came over the comms, directing the fleet with precision. We hold the line. Protect Luna 1 at all costs. We cannot let them breach our defenses. The human forces fought valiantly, their resolve strengthened by the enhancements coursing through their veins. Hulk led his crew with unwavering determination, directing strikes against the Coalition vessels. But the Coalition had come prepared, their tactics honed and brutal. As the battle wore on, it became clear that the Coalition was employing new strategies, coordinating attacks in ways that caught the human fleet off guard. The intensity of the conflict increased, and casualties began to mount once more. "Captain, we're losing ships," Reyes shouted, her voice laced with panic. "We need to regroup." "Hold the line," Hulk yelled, his heart pounding. "We can't falter now. We need to find Zolfa's flagship and neutralize it." As the battle continued, Hulk caught sight of the Imperious, Zolfa's flagship, maneuvering with surprising agility. "There, that's our target," he exclaimed, locking onto the cruiser's position. "Let's take it down." But before he could engage, a massive explosion rocked the Sphinx. Alarms blared as the ship shook violently, throwing crew members from their stations. "Damage report," Hulk shouted, regaining his footing. "We've lost power to the aft shields," Reyes reported, urgency in her voice. "They're targeting us." "Return fire. We can't let them break through," Hulk commanded, rallying his crew even as despair threatened to seep in. Despite their efforts, the Coalition fleet began to gain ground. Zolfa's forces pressed their advantage, and the human defenses started to crumble. Hulk knew they needed to change tactics. "Fall back to Luna 1. We'll regroup there," he shouted, directing the remaining ships toward the safety of their stronghold. "We'll make our stand at the base." As they retreated, the Coalition pursued relentlessly, determined to capitalize on their momentum. The human fleet took heavy fire, and one by one, ships fell to the Coalition's onslaught. Finally, the battered remnants of the human fleet reached Luna 1. The base had been fortified, but the stakes were higher than ever. They had to hold out against the impending assault. "Prepare for the worst," Hulk said, rallying his crew. "We will not go down without a fight." As the Coalition ships closed in on Luna 1, the determination of humanity surged. They had faced insurmountable odds before, and they would do so again. Each person on that base had something worth fighting for, a future they would defend at all costs. And as Zolfa's flagship loomed on the horizon, Hulk and his crew prepared to face their enemy, ready to make a final stand against the darkness threatening to consume them. The atmosphere on Luna 1 crackled with tension as the Coalition forces, led by Commander Zolfo, prepared to deliver the final blow. The human fleet had retreated to the lunar base, their numbers dwindling but their spirits unbroken. Captain Malik Hulk stood at the forefront, determination etched on his face as he rallied his crew. "Everyone, listen up," Hulk shouted over the roar of alarms and the distant thrum of the Coalition ships approaching. "We've faced impossible odds before, and we've come out stronger. This is our home, and we will defend it with everything we have." His words ignited a fire within the crew. They had lost friends and comrades, but they had also triumphed against adversity. Now they stood on the precipice of a decisive confrontation. Status report, Hawk commanded as he turned to Lieutenant Reyes, who was already monitoring the incoming coalition fleet. Zolfo's forces are closing in fast, she reported, her voice steady despite the weight of the situation. They're targeting our defense installations, but we still have a few surprises up our sleeves. Good. We'll use every advantage we have, Hawk replied, glancing at the tactical display. Ilara's enhancements will give us the edge we need. We'll hold our ground and show them that humanity will not be crushed. Meanwhile, in the research lab, Dr. Ilara Quinn and her team worked feverishly to implement the final adjustments to the countermeasures. The genetic enhancements they had developed would boost the resilience of their crew, but time was running out. Mason, how much longer? Ilara asked, her heart racing as she glanced at the clock. Just a few more minutes, Mason replied, his hands flying over the control panel. We need to ensure that every personnel receives the treatment. It can make the difference in this battle. As the last of the enhancements were administered, Ilara felt a swell of hope. This was humanity's chance to turn the tide against their oppressors. They would not only fight to survive, but to reclaim their right to exist without fear. Back on the command deck, Hawk monitored the advancing coalition ships, determination etched on his face. Prepare the defenses. We'll set up a defensive perimeter around Luna 1 and engage them head-on. The crew scrambled to their stations, their hearts pounding with adrenaline. As the coalition fleet entered firing range, the alarms blared a deafening warning. Here they come, Reyes shouted, her eyes fixed on the approaching ships. Hold steady, Hawk commanded. We'll hit them with everything we've got. The battle erupted in a cacophony of light and sound as both fleets clashed. Laser fire illuminated the darkness of space, creating a dazzling display of destruction. Human ships maneuvered with renewed vigor, empowered by Ilara's enhancements. Engage their lead ship, Hawk yelled, directing fire toward Zolfo's flagship, the Imperius. Let's take the fight to them. As laser blasts rained down, the coalition's retaliation was swift and brutal. They targeted the human defenses, determined to breach the perimeter and shatter the last vestiges of resistance. Captain, we're losing shields on the starboard side, a crew member shouted, panic creeping into their voice. Divert power to the starboard shields, Hawk ordered, feeling the strain of command weigh heavily upon him. We need to hold the line. The human fleet fought valiantly, but the coalition's relentless assault took its toll. Ships around them exploded in brilliant flashes, sending debris careening through space. The cries of crew members echoed in the chaos, the stark reality of battle closing in. Captain, we're outnumbered, Reyes shouted as she analyzed the tactical readouts. If we don't do something soon, we'll be overrun. We have to find a way to neutralize Zolfo's flagship, Hawk declared, his mind racing. If we can take him out, the coalition will lose their nerve. As they pressed the attack, a surge of energy coursed through the human ships. The enhancements from Ilara's research had taken effect, bolstering their defenses and revitalizing their spirits. They began to push back, each strike resonating with determination. Target the Imperius. All ships, concentrate fire, Hawk commanded, his voice ringing with authority. With renewed energy, the human fleet focused their assault on Zolfo's flagship. Laser blasts converged on the massive cruiser, striking it with precision. Explosions rocked the Imperius, but Zolfo fought back with ruthless determination. Return fire. Don't let them breach our defenses, he bellowed, his voice echoing through the corridors of his ship. He was determined to crush humanity once and for all. But just as it seemed they might gain the upper hand, the coalition unleashed a devastating new weapon, a massive energy beam that ripped through space, targeting Luna 1 directly. Captain, they're targeting the base, Reyes cried, her eyes wide with alarm. We need to divert power to the planetary shields. Hulk's heart raced as he weighed the options. Divert power from the weapon systems. We can't let them destroy Luna 1. As they redirected energy to the shields, the beam struck, sending shockwaves through the lunar base. Alarms blared as the shields flickered under the intense assault. The crew braced themselves, knowing that they were fighting against time. "Hold on," Hulk shouted as he pushed the ship forward, attempting to draw the fire away from the base. "We can't let them take this from us." With a final surge of power, the shields held, but the strain was immense. The Coalition's relentless assault continued, and Zolfar's forces began to surround them. Hulk felt a pang of despair but refused to back down. "Keep fighting," he urged his crew, determination igniting within him. "We can't give up. Not now." As the battle raged, a signal crackled through the comm system. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from a Coalition defector," one crew member reported. "They say they have vital information about Zolfar's flagship and a weakness we can exploit." "Patch it through," Hulk ordered, hope flickering in his chest. The screen flickered, revealing a familiar face, a former Coalition officer who had turned against Zolfar. "If you want to take down the Imperius, you need to hit its reactor core," the officer explained urgently. "It's vulnerable from the underside. You can't waste time. Zolfar's planning something catastrophic." "Thank you," Hulk replied, steeling himself. "We'll make it count." "Reyes, plot a course for the underside of the Imperius," he commanded. "We'll strike while they're distracted." As the crew redirected their efforts, they moved with a sense of purpose. The Coalition fleet was still firing relentlessly, but they had a target now, an opportunity to turn the tide. "Engage cloaking protocols," Hulk ordered, knowing that stealth would be their ally. The Sphinx maneuvered into position, slipping through the chaos of battle, unnoticed by Zolfar's forces. "We're almost in range," Reyes reported, her fingers dancing over the controls. "Prepare to fire on my mark." With bated breath, the crew focused their energy on the Imperius. The massive Coalition flagship loomed ahead, its hull shimmering with energy as it absorbed the fire from the human fleet. But below, its reactor core remained vulnerable. "Now," Hulk shouted as they emerged from stealth, locking onto the target. "Fire." The Sphinx unleashed a torrent of laser fire, targeting the reactor core with pinpoint accuracy. The beams struck true, sending tremors through the flagship. Zolfar's furious response came too late. "No," he bellowed, watching as his flagship began to falter. "Prepare to engage their ship." But it was too late. With a catastrophic explosion, the reactor core detonated, tearing through the Imperius and sending debris flying in every direction. The flagship erupted in flames, a testament to humanity's determination. "Victory!" Reyes shouted, elation filling her voice as the Coalition forces staggered back. "We did it." The remaining Coalition ships hesitated, panic spreading among their ranks. Zolfar had fallen, and with him, their resolve began to crumble. The human fleet seized the moment, rallying together to launch a final counteroffensive. "Press the attack," Hulk commanded, knowing that the victory was within reach. "We will not let them regroup." The human ships surged forward, laser fire lighting up the darkness as they pressed their advantage. The Coalition, reeling from the loss of their flagship, struggled to maintain their formation. As the final battle unfolded, the human fleet pushed back with a vengeance. One by one, Coalition ships fell, their crews realizing the futility of their situation. The tide had turned decisively in favor of humanity. As the last of the Coalition vessels retreated, cheers erupted throughout the human fleet. They had faced unimaginable odds and emerged victorious, their spirit unbroken. Hulk stood on the bridge of the Sphinx, his heart swelling with pride. "We did it," he exclaimed, looking at his crew. "We fought for our future, and we prevailed." But amidst the celebration, he felt a pang of sorrow for the lives lost in the struggle. They had fought hard, and the cost had been high. As he gazed out at the stars, he realized that this was not just a victory, it was a new beginning.